Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Bruce McDonald, and this is the Talamanca Review. It's 2:43 p.m. Central Time, Thursday, the 11th of February. And today I am going to continue on with tying it all together. Let's call this Tie It All Together Redux. And one of the things I've noticed is that most of the disclosure that was meant to be given to the human race has been given. There's nothing left to do now but put it all together. And what does it mean? Because a lot of the disclosure has been indirect, and where it is specific, it is limited to a percentage of the details required to understand the picture. And this is sort of what's been going on here. And so tying it all together is extremely important. Let me just bump up my microphone there. Yeah, okay. Is that good? Yeah. It's really what we're supposed to be doing in this time is tying it all together. So what do I mean when I say it's all pretty much been given already? Well, I'd say that the disclosure started in the mid-90s, at least the ET component of it. The people who are not getting this are really, I'd say, thick-headed, and or really, really embedded with a very strong program, okay? So let's take some examples of this.
Here's one of the U.S. government's top UFO researchers, Luis Elizondo, revealing what he was told by a high-ranking Pentagon official about the UFO phenomenon. Strangely, Luis Elizondo has never since repeated what you are about to hear him say in his recent congressional meetings. You will understand why when you watch this video.
This is a person I respected tremendously, very, very senior person. He's told me, he said, "Lou, I want you to stop doing this." I said, "Okay, sir, I certainly can, but may I ask why?" And he says, "Well, we already know what it is." Now, at that moment, I honestly thought maybe it was our own technology. I was running up against some super uber secret SAP, and they were telling me to stop. And I said, "Okay, sir, so it's ours?" And he said, "No, that's not what I'm saying." And he said, he asked me point blank, "Have you read your Bible lately?" And I wasn't quite sure where he was going with that. And I said, "Well, sir, I think I know what it says. Where are you going with this?" And he said, "Well, then you would know that these things are demonic, and we should not be pursuing them."
Franklin, we see a long line, a couple of star-like things, and a lot of things swimming in the foreground. Can you describe what you're seeing?
Well, the long line is a tether, and there's a little bit of debris that kind of flies with us. And
so this is a Pentagon. This is a Department of Defense official saying, "Stop looking at UFOs because they're demonic."
Correct.
He says the grain plane, the master's grain plane, for harvesting the nations, for harvesting the multitudes of the earth into his cause, just before the close of the great controversy between the forces of good and evil. So we continued, after we expressed ourselves that we're deeply interested to know more about the activities of the spirits. And he said it's going to be done in a unique manner. This grain plane is going to take people are going to eat the stuff. Because he says spirits, demon spirits, will declare themselves to be inhabitants of far distant planets in the galaxies that are coming to warn the inhabitants of planet Earth of the impending destruction of the planet, unless something seriously proper is done to avoid it. When the spirits will, through a trance medium, converse with influential people of the land, you see, that the spirits will show themselves willing to give valuable guidance that will not only help people avoid the destruction of the planet, but it would cause them to enter into a higher state of existence. For instance, he said the spirits will promise, and this is a big word, promise, that if their recommendations are followed carefully, they will usher in a glorious new age of peace and prosperity. And there'll be, there'll be no more wars. See, there'll be no more famines. There'll be no more people getting unhappy to one another. Neighbors will love neighbor, and social unrest will not take place no more. There'll be perfect happiness for 1,000 years. That's what the Spirit is going to promise.
Okay, so this is one dimension of what is going on. Okay, so there's this group out there now saying, and it's true, you know, that there are people in the Pentagon saying this, but I'd say most of the high-level people in the Pentagon are Masons. You know, I don't think you could rise that high without having the occult training and without being a foot soldier in some capacity of the ruling religion on this planet, which is reptilian Kabbalism. Okay? There's just no way, because it's taken over so many sectors now. And it's created whole religions, okay? Jehovah's Witness is a Masonic construction. Mormonism is a Masonic construction. Now remember, these are all derivative of Masonry, and Masonry is derivative of Kabbalah. There's some of the high-level rabbis saying that when all is said and done, even their Masonic brethren who assisted in the Great Plan will be destroyed as well, because it's only Jews can survive. And but that's not consistent either. There's a bunch of Jews saying that, you know, every living Jew will have something like 2,800 slaves, right? So I don't even know how you could keep that many slaves busy. How many shoes do you have to be polished? You know, and these sorts of things. But we are in an age of unparalleled deception. And you're not going to be able to figure anything out from external sources. You got to go inside yourself, and you got to ask for help. Now, when I say these things, there's something that I skirt around a lot. And some people in the messages I receive, they're a bit confused. They want to know, well, I don't understand, Bruce. On the one hand, you're saying that the Gospels should be followed as a way of living. And on the other hand, you're saying that all of this Bible stuff is a great deception. Yes, that is actually precisely what I'm saying. Okay? So, I don't believe in salvation doctrine. I don't believe you can say, Jesus saved me, and he'll save you. I believe he helps a lot of people out in the fourth dimension. I believe that he disentangles people from very negative circumstances. Very, very effective religion for people who are picking themselves up from the first level of hell, whether that be being a killer, an assassin, a drug dealer, a mercenary soldier, an alcoholic. Christianity is very good at waking the heart up. And I don't want to denigrate it because it has positive utility, okay? So I would say that the rules for living that Christ gave in the gospel are 100% accurate. And I try to follow them as much or more than any Christian. And yet, outwardly, I say I'm not a Christian because I don't believe Christ can save me. Only I can save myself. Very interesting dynamic. Now, one of the cloaks over people is that everything is demonic. And the Christians are using this ad nauseum. I mean, they everything now is demonic, 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 demonic. Let's take a look at this, okay?
Okay, so a moment ago we were talking about drugs. Do you think that the use of drugs is directly related to demons? Or do you think using drugs opens portals to demons entering you? Or what are your thoughts on that? On drugs in general?
You are kidding. You are kidding.
No.
You know my answer.
No, I don't.
Yes, of course.
If I knew it, I wouldn't ask you.
I understand. Of course. It's one of the main factors that I deal with in getting rid of demons. And
how do you distinguish between the drugs is a very broad term. There's all kinds of drugs. There's drugs that can help lower your cholesterol. There's drugs that can help you enter another dimension. How do you distinguish which drugs are related to the devil?
Let's just talk about street drugs. Or weed, which used to be a street drug.
Okay, but weed is a plant. It's grown out of the ground.
I cast more demons out of people from smoking weed than anything else. You want to know why?
What makes weed so demonic?
Google Shiva and marijuana.
Okay, let's look it up, Steve. Shiva and marijuana.
Mm-hmm. So there's 3 main gods in Hinduism.
Correct.
All right. Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva.
Lord Shiva is associated with marijuana.
Destroyer.
Is associated with marijuana because he consumed bhang to alleviate the pain after drinking the poison hala hala during the churning of the ocean. He was using it to alleviate seasickness.
But there is a multi-millennial tradition in the East, and particularly in India.
Okay, here it says in Hindu festivals such as the Shiva Ratri, devotees consume marijuana as a form of praising to Shiva, or as a form of praise to Shiva, symbolizing their love and devotion. So where is the evil stuff here?
Shiva.
Shiva's evil?
Is the Lord of death and destruction.
Oh, really?
That's what he's known as.
Oh.
Now, of course, philosophical Hinduism has ways to try to
so it's like the Hindu devil
to get around that, but he is the Lord of death and destruction.
Okay.
Okay.
So Shiva, Steve, can you find out like Shiva's what does the Google call Shiva? I'm assuming it's the Hindu devil.
Well, no, Shiva is a Hindu god, but you will see pictures if you look far enough of Shiva smoking ganja or marijuana or cannabis.
Okay.
He's the god of destruction. See it?
Where does it say that? Oh, Shiva is known as the destroyer within the Trimurti, the Hindu Trinity.
Do you remember what Oppenheimer said when the first atomic bomb went off?
Destroyer of worlds, I
am become Shiva. Now
that was a Shiva quote.
The film changed it a little bit. They didn't tell you the truth.
That was from the Bhagavad Gita, right?
Yeah. But his exact words are, I am become Shiva, destroyer of worlds.
That's what he actually said?
That is what he actually said.
Who changed it?
Huh?
Who changed it to I am become death?
Oh, they political correctness.
Really? Fine. We gotta find this.
But you could find it.
I didn't know this.
Okay.
Scroll up, Steve. It's telling you in the AI. Oppenheimer did not actually say, I am become Shiva, destroyer of words. The quote is known for I am become death, destroyer of worlds. The phrase comes from the Bhagavad Gita, the sacred Hindu text. Oppenheimer recalled thinking of this verse during the Trinity nuclear tests, the first detonation of a nuclear weapon.
But the point is, I'm become death. I am become Shiva. Shiva is the Lord of death. Same thing.
Right, but he didn't write I am become Shiva. He wrote I am become
Well,
death.
some say that he did, and I don't know what text you're pulling from there, but there's a bit of a dispute over that.
This is AI, I think. This is the Google AI.
Okay, but my point is, when someone comes to me and tells me that for a long period of time they've been smoking weed, I'm going to say over 50% of the time I can call forth the demon Shiva.
But what about all the...
I'm just telling you.
What about all like the people that come back from war with PTSD and all these mental illnesses and these hypervigilance, these issues that they're having, and they're literally prescribed weed and it alleviates weed, CBD, all these things that alleviate their stress.
Wait a minute.
They bring them back to normal.
Wait a minute.
And save their lives.
Wait a minute. You're talking about the difference between somebody who's under medical care, medical supervision, who's being administered a drug.
Sure.
Could be any kind of drug.
It's a drug that comes out of the earth.
Exactly.
God-given plant.
Well, no, wait a minute. If it's used properly by the proper people for the proper purposes. Okay? So if you've got a doctor,
does it say that in the Bible?
If you've got a doctor who is administering any kind of drug, which has psychotropic qualities, and that doctor is administering certain dosages under his supervision.
Okay, so you gotta take a moment to capture the hypocrisy, or the let's be honest, let's call it what it is. It's not hypocrisy, it's ignorance. Okay, the ignorance of what this pastor is saying. So, I mean, little does he know that the medical institute has become one of the chief expressions of negativity in the world, the Western allopathic system. Its overuse of medicines, its very destructive use of painkillers that are opiate-based or synthetic opioid-based. And this is all coming from our system. It was our medical system that brought the miracle cure to the pandemic that never really existed, or if it existed, came out of a lab in Wuhan. And this guy is saying, well, that's not demonic because that's being prescribed by a doctor. But if you're smoking weed, that's demonic. Now, here I have to give a little bit of explanation before we'll do a little bit more of that pastor. It's an excellent podcast, by the way, on Danny Jones. That guy's done over like 1,000 exorcisms. Okay. And you know, I mean, exorcisms are not the be all and end all. I mean, probably at least 25% of you who listen to me can do them, and you don't even know you can do it. But if you're understanding what I'm saying on this podcast, you can probably do it. Okay? It's about jurisdiction and law and sovereignty and knowing who you are. Okay? So, is Shiva a negative entity? Well, here's the problem with Christianity, okay? And what it did was it created an embryonic religion. So, the Christians believe that you can go from human consciousness to divine consciousness without passing through what we call this middle kingdom. And if you do pass through this middle kingdom, which you have to do to get to the divine regions, it'll manifest in your unconscious as or in paranormal activity that will, in their estimation, represent your battle with the devil. Okay? Now, another thing Christianity does is labels everything negative. And it's this absolutism in the religion that is bringing about the death of this culture. And make no mistake about it, this Christian culture is being slated for destruction. Okay? And specifically Western European, North American, white Christian world is being slated for destruction. Now, nothing can be done without the law because there is a God. Okay, there is a cosmic law. Now, the way they get around it is they confuse the law and they confuse people so much and they invert things so much that when people think they're denying something, they're actually consenting to it. And when people think they're consenting to something, they're actually denying it. Now, how the powers above us are going to interpret this, I don't know. But it makes you wonder if the law or the maxim that ignorance of the law is no excuse applies to divine law. I would say it does, but only if the heart is functioning correctly in a human environment that allows the heart to function correctly. But we've been so manipulated in the last 144 years that it's hard to say what's right anymore. Okay? So this was all part of the plan. Make no mistake about it. This was part of the great plan. Okay? We've been going forward with this sort of 2-minute warning, if you will, on the game down here in this cycle of time. We've been on this 2-minute warning for probably 500 years now. Okay? Or since the central banking, since Gutenberg, and since Protestantism and the fracturing of the Catholic Church. Okay? And it almost sets a clock for the end times. Now, there is no absolute answer to anything. That's what you say when you take responsibility for people and you can't really guarantee their protection. Okay? It's like the insurance industry. Or like the medical insurance industry. You think you're covered for something, you go to make your claim after a hospital stay, and you get denied. Okay? Hey, well, my insurance broker told me this, and this. Well, they were wrong. Okay? That's going to be a lot of people when they get to the other side, and they say, well, the Bible said this. Well, you didn't interpret that correctly. Okay? And there's going to be a tremendous amount of that. Okay? So let's just get a little bit more of this pastor.
Kid buying stuff off the streets that's been laced with God knows what. And that's what I deal with. Okay? That's a very different scenario.
Okay. But there's a difference here. You're talking about a 15-year-old kid buying something off the streets who is most likely is involved with crime, bad parenting. There's a lot of shit going on here.
Exactly.
You can't cherry pick the marijuana out of there and say the marijuana is demonic because there's all kinds of other influences going on here.
I ask the demon under penalty of judgment by the Holy Spirit to tell me, how did you get there? And he laughs and he says, weed.
He says weed?
Yeah.
Then why did God put weed everywhere?
Wait a minute. But by that, he means the illicit use of it. So,
okay,
heroin as a narcotic,
poppy,
used in a proper derivative form, as an analgesic, as some form of medication. What is morphine?
Same thing.
Yeah. Okay. But if it's under a doctor's care and supervision, and the quantification of it, and the regularity of it.
What if that person doesn't have the access to a doctor?
They want to play Russian roulette with their mind? That's a very dangerous thing to do. Okay?
Is that the devil, if you don't have a doctor prescribing it?
It could just be them. Could be a lot of things. I'm just telling you. I'm an exorcist. This is what I deal with. This is the ugly truth about what's going on. And this is where the devil works in the lives of a lot of young people today. And I see it every day.
So like so many things, you kind of have to split the difference here, right? You have to come somewhere sort of in the middle of all this. So generally speaking, you shouldn't use any libations in your life unless you're doing them very, very seldomly and you're seriously preparing with 2-3 days of fasting and forming your intent for why you want to go into that state of consciousness. Okay? I can tell you that the pastor is correct that weakening your aura will come about by the smoking, especially of the marijuana that's been developed in the last 10, 15, 20 years, which is because of the way we approach everything now that has money to be made, 5 to 10 times stronger than the natural weed that grew in like the 1970s in the fields. You know, marijuana is like a full-blown narcotic now. It is very powerful. and you will puncture holes in your aura, and it will first show up as aberrant thinking, and you'll go, hey, where'd that thought come from? If you're aware. But if you're high every day, you're probably not going to be aware, and it just sneaks up on you. And it can lead to you being attacked by very dark things. Now, here's another thing that these Christians get wrong, okay? They think everything is demons, okay? It isn't. I mean, it's like in the Christian cosmology, there's God, man, angels, and demons. Now, there are subclasses of angels like seraphim and cherubim and all of these sorts of things. But when you get into Pierre Sabac's work, you know, Sabak, he deconstructs the language and symbology of all this. They're talking about alien craft. Okay? So these people are the most deluded people on the planet now. And their counsel to anyone is don't do anything, say you're with Jesus, and everything will be okay, and when you die, you go to heaven. That is a completely wasted life in terms of the exploration and growth of consciousness. Okay? Think of it like the normal cycles of growing up. You know, kindergarten, grade school, middle school, high school, secondary school, college. At each stage of that growth, you go through challenges that at the time are terrifying. You know, when you meet your first bully in the 5th or 6th grade, it's terrifying. You've never been in a fight before. You don't know what's going on. Somebody wants to do physical harm to you. Somebody is expressing extreme hatred toward you. What do? Right? Well, you go through that experience and you grow from it. Whether you win the fight, lose the fight's broken up by a teacher before anyone gets hurt, you learn something. You learn something about how to comport yourself in this world. And it is the same with the other worlds you have to go through before you get to the spiritual regions. I know very few people of high consciousness who have not had to meet and do battle with some form of dark entity. I've had it happen about 6 times, okay? Half dozen times in my life. Plus, I was raised in a very demonic house. Now, there's all sorts of things. I mean, so look again at the Christian cosmology. Where's Bigfoot? Where's Dogman? Where are the Duende? Where are the fairies? Okay? Where is all the interdimensional... Where are the gray aliens? Where are the reptilians? Where are the Palladians? Well, they're, according to this guy, everything, Shiva, every extraterrestrial race, a fairy, the Duende, everything is a demon trying to deceive you. Do you understand how fucking ridiculous that is? I hope you do after the time you've spent with the Talamanca Review. Now, I want to take you back to 2016 to one of my favorite people in the alternative media, and let's listen to what he had to say a little bit, okay?
The one thing that this particular consciousness stream that is controlling or has its hands on controlling the planet at the moment is vampiric in nature, which is vampiric. It's a taking energy. It's not giving energy. It doesn't have a central source where it cannot self-sustain. It has to take from others. You know, the vampiric consciousness that is here has created religions or sport or philosophies or any of those. They don't care particularly which one you follow or which one you attach to. It's none of their business which one you do, but as long as you attach to one of them, because each one is connected to it's like a multi-headed or maybe an octopus. So if there's a central point like that, so each of the strands come out, but they all lead to the same center point, which is a black hole essentially. It's a black hole that is pulling energy from people in any way, and they particularly like, you know, any of the religions, because that's, you know, that's precious energy that's given away like that. Even a lot of the big music gatherings that go on are set up ritualistically. So they don't care whether you're cheering or whether you're booing. It doesn't really matter as long as you're doing it strongly. So you, like, even Glastonbury is now set up in a specific way where the stage, it's all ritualistically done to pull energy from the people. And then they gather that energy, harvest it, and use it then to manifest the false reality that we're living in. Because they can't create reality. They don't know. They don't have the creative spark themselves, but they do know how to manipulate the ones that do have it, and that's essentially what the deal is. They're manipulating this because it's the subconscious that creates the physical reality, and they've hijacked the subconscious of the real creators, and then now we're stuck in this false reality mess. There's a lot of complexities that go on exactly how that works, in my opinion, but yeah, that's what's going on with that. So the creation of this reality begins at the young age. So all the textbooks and all the history books are then written and so that we all collectively believe this particular thing. So then when we all believe it, we all manifest a reality that's based on these books.
Yes.
That's very sneaky and a very clever way to do it, because how do we know the textbooks are legit? They're not. The wars are written by the winners, aren't they? And so the winners write whatever they want to write in there, and then we just believe it. We take it on board. So we start learning that numbers and letters are. They only give us a very simple version of what numbers and letters are, and there's so much more to what numbers and letters are. Even phonetically, how a word sounds, how you say it when you speak, how it sounds to a person is going to affect them. It's not just a word. I think I wrote the other day. And I think people know this, but you spell a word because words are spells.
Yes.
You say a sentence to somebody, you're literally saying a spell, and words are that old adage, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words names will never hurt me is not true.
Yes.
Yeah, because words are very, very powerful.
I go further and say thought matters.
Yeah.
Literally matters.
Yeah. Well, thought creates matter.
Yes.
Yeah.
So for those of you who don't know, that was Max Spears, and he was a super soldier, and he gave up a lot of information. He was able to open his heart where not a lot of these people can. John Edmonds was able to, and John Edmonds was a first-generation super soldier. And I don't know what Max Spears was. He was maybe third or fourth generation. But that's another thing that's going on now is a lot of the so-called spiritual information that people are getting is coming from this third school, which is, it's so hard to find the language, okay? So literally everywhere you go, there's poison in the well. It doesn't mean that if you drink a cup of water, you're going to die. But if you keep drinking from that well, you will get toxified, you will get very ill, and you may die. And it's all these people are sort of fighting each other for the domination of their absolute dogma. Okay? So the Christian, you heard him on the Danny Jones podcast, Shiva is a demon. Well, to like a billion Hindus, he's actually a god. So, and remember, the entire concept of the demon comes from the Jews, who, according to their own scripture, they were able to enslave 3,000 years ago by who? King Solomon, right? Who may not have lived. Jordan Peterson said he never actually lived and the first temple never actually existed. I don't know if that's true or not, but all of this magic and demonology and occultism masquerading as religion, and it's their religion, by the way. And, Spears doesn't come right out and say it, but this is pretty much reptilian, okay? And at the top of the reptilian hierarchy are the tall white Dracos. And they're here on the astral, they're here physically. Not many of them, but they're here physically. A lot of people lie about this. Andrew Bartzis lied about it. You know, he lied about a lot of things. And I think he knew better, and I don't know why he lied. I'm not quite sure he was one of them. I think he was just a freelance scumbag looking to make $1 to $2 million a year off of people's misery and exploiting them so he didn't have to work and he could have his. And there's a lot of people like that in the New Age movement, giving their bullshit, okay? You're not going to get anywhere. You're not going to figure out anything if you're only basing everything off of external sources and you're not doing your own inner journey. Because that's where it's all going to come about, okay? That's where the awakening is going to come about for you. So literally everything is inverted now. And I might be able to find something good to explain that.
One of the strangest news at the back of my mind for 2016 that has me curious and puzzled is the news about the death of the British ufologist Max Spires. Like many known ufologists, Spires made a lot of buzz for himself in the world of conspiracy theories. The time before his death, he was invited to speak at a UFO conference in Warsaw, Poland.
So, what they've done, what they're trying to do is isolate the human being with more and more and more technology, so that we do not connect with each other.
During the visit, he stayed at a house that belonged to an unnamed woman. Based on her account, she found his lifeless body on her couch the next morning. When I heard this story, I had a flashback of a personal experience when I attended college in Portland, Oregon. One day, my English lit teacher came into class late with a strange story to tell. She said she had an interesting weekend and that she had a visit from an old friend that stayed over at her place. They had a lot of interesting conversations about whatever their interests were at the time. I imagine some boring books they read, or maybe some James Joyce. Anyways, the next morning, she discovered that he had dropped dead on her couch. And that was it. No details, and the class went on as normal. Not one person in class mentioned it at all that day. In the case of Max Spires, he had mentioned to his mother, Vanessa Bates, also an English teacher, before he left to the conference, that if he somehow ended up dead, his death should be investigated. What? And if that doesn't get any stranger, the details of his death, according to the coroner's investigation officer, Caroline O'Donnell, Mr. Spires became ill with a high temperature and was weak, and the day before his death, he vomited 2 liters of black fluid. Black fluid! So this is what's considered death by natural causes to the eyes of the Polish forensic team? Well, the next step to this interesting case, Spires' cell phone and the computer he used are being analyzed by the Polish forensic team. The results won't be available until February of 2017, so until then, just like the stories he had tried to uncover, this story will remain in the realm of the conspiracy theory and will probably remain unsolved. See you next time.
Now, Max was one of the best voices out there tying everything together. And that's one of the reasons they killed him. And he was able to tie everything together because he was raised in the system. And he was what the Soviets would call a defector. And these people in this alien Kabbalah reptilian culture, which is energy harvesting, right? Which is what the interdimensionals do. Okay, they don't take too well to defectors at all. Okay, now you're allowed to figure things out yourself. I don't get bothered because I've figured out most of the stuff myself. I've researched and investigated and interviewed a lot of people over the years, talked to a lot of people informally. I say interview, I mean, it's a series of questions, but I wasn't writing an article or anything. But I've sort of pieced it all together. And it's exactly what I'm telling you it is. This cult of the Black Sun is behind the Temple of Solomon. It has little or nothing to do with Judaism. Okay? Look, the only temple you need is your body. Okay, your body literally is a temple. You're an immortal spiritual being put into this temporary, fragile structure called a human body, which is involved in an economy in the dimension it lives, meaning it has to sleep, it has to eat, and in very many instances, you'll procreate. And that's the energetic economy of your body, okay? But what you are inside the body comes from somewhere else. And they don't want you to know that. And while we're here, the physical body we're in operates in a manner very, very similar to a distillery, which distills alcohol, okay? And the body is used to distill the spiritual energy, and it's appropriated. Now, Max said it's appropriated to maintain the false reality, but I think they need it to live, okay? Because they are very dead people, and they have no heart. And that's the first indication you're dealing with a dead person. There's a number of ways of seeing it. They speak a kind of system jargon that makes no sense. Okay? Gavin Newsom is a perfect example. Okay? Let's listen to a little.
You previously mentioned the timeline for rebuilding would be 6 to 9 months. Is that going to happen? And should people rebuild in some parts of California, given how high the fire risk is?
Yeah, you can't rebuild the same. So we have to rebuild with science. We have to build with climate reality in mind. We have to look at infrastructure, redundancy, systems, ingress, egress as it relates to emergency management and planning, materials, all of that is being reviewed and reconsidered, and with the latest iterations in terms of understanding and technology. And I say technology in the context of how, again, we build the infrastructure to keep it safe, to address undergrounding of lines, how we address the larger issues of redundancy in terms of systems. But more important than anything else is the need to get the debris removed. 30 days to do the hazardous waste. We want to get 6 to 9 months, the rest of the debris done. Concurrently, people are getting permits. So this is all happening, rolling together, and we want to see construction very shortly. And in the next few years, we want to see hundreds, thousands of homes rebuilt.
But I think there's a big question about how do some Californians do that, right? You have State Farm announcing that it has an average 22% interim rate hike for homeowners. The fair insurance plan for the state is just bogged down right now. Your dad, I believe, is on that plan, if I recall. Californians are saying they're not getting the help they need from FAIR. It's really confusing.
Well, FAIR's not a state plan. It's not a taxpayer-funded plan. It's a syndicate pool run by the insurance market itself. And it's the insurer of last resort. And it's existed back to Ronald Reagan in 1968. As it relates to that plan and their exposure, they have reinsurance, a significant amount of reinsurance. We feel strongly at this moment, and again, this changes in real time, that the plan will be able to absorb the losses ultimately. Now, as it relates to the larger issue of the insurance market, not unique to California by any stretch of the imagination, what's happening with insurance, and this is the reality, the new reality of extremes, extreme heat, extreme drought. You have droughts and rain bombs. You have flooding at the same time you're dealing with droughts, all happening concurrently. There's a new reality, the world we're living in. And if you're not believing science, you have to believe your own eyes, your own lived experience. And the reality is the insurance market understands it better than anyone else. The market and Mother Nature's are going to have to change the way we live and do business in the context of how we plan, how we do land use, zoning into the future along the lines of your question. We have to wake up to this reality. We cannot be in denial about what's going on with Mother Nature, again, around the globe, not just in the state of California.
Just to sort of pin you down, what does that mean for the rebuilding in some of these high-risk areas?
Just more sophisticated design and planning. Remember, Altadena, many of those homes were done in the 20s and 30s and 40s for a world that no longer exists from a climate perspective. And so the ability to absorb a deeper understanding as you rebuild it presents itself anew in a profound and, we hope, impactful way. So I'm concerned about it, but I'm not concerned about our resourcefulness to address it with the most modern standards anywhere in the world. By the way, California leads the nation already in building zoning standards. Our ability now to take it to the next level, to be a model for the rest of the country, presents itself.
Do you seriously have any idea what that guy just said? That was 3 minutes and 30 seconds. Do you know what California's position is on rebuilding? Because it was supposed to be explained. You can see the interviewer, her last final attempt, just to pin you down one more time. He will not answer the questions. And they wonder why people like Trump. Okay? He speaks directly. He speaks in the colloquial. Okay? Now I'm going to show you the absolute king of system speak. And this is a language perfected for the political representatives of, let's just call it, the alien Kabbalistic cult religion. Okay?
One more thing. Tariffs on Canadian steel and aluminum would be entirely unjustified. We are the U.S.'s closest ally. Our economies are integrated. Canadian steel and aluminum is used in a number of key American industries, whether it's defense, shipbuilding, manufacturing, energy, automotive. Together we make North America more competitive. We will be working with the American administration over the coming weeks to highlight the negative impacts on Americans and Canadians of these unacceptable tariffs. We will also be working with our international partners, friends, and if it comes to that, our response, of course, will be firm and clear. We will stand up for Canadian workers, we will stand up for Canadian industries, and more Canadians will stand up for each other. This is a moment of pride, this is a moment of pulling together, this is a moment for Canada to be solid in our identity, in our sovereignty, and in our presence for our friends and neighbors.
Again, empty, vacuous nonsense. He doesn't say anything, okay? And it's gotten so bad in the last 20 years, the way politicians speak. Biden did it too. It is the chief characteristic of a lackey of the cult. And generally, many of them are initiates as well. They're murderers, pedophiles, ritual killers. Okay, they're fully involved in this whole reptilian subculture. And you may ask yourself then, well, why aren't they all involved in the formation of the temple? Well, in a sense, they are. And that's just the way they do it. They do it with these false dialectics, these false antagonisms. But it's just absolutely despicable to see this. So tie it all together. They've separated us from the land, as I said in the first part. Then they came in with the straw man, and you saw how effective the straw man was. I mean, it shut down a trucker protest, okay? And it was really amazing the way they did that. And that was all just done through systems, okay? All just done through systems. And now they're getting into the bioaugmentation part of it, which, by the way, is in one measure depopulation, and in another measure it's a hybridization program. That's what's going on. Remember Cynthia Crawford? Well, they've been working on this for 80 years, the hybridization with UFOs, okay? So it's very difficult to get your head around everything that's going on here. I mean, it's almost impossible. You have to have divine guidance. And that's why I think you should go within yourself, because that's where your self is, and your true self is an aspect of the Creator. So that's where you need to go to get your answers. I mean, you can listen to the Talamanca Review. It's entertaining, I hope. But really, ultimately, all I can do is motivate you to do your own work. This is Tying It All Together, Redo. And I'm Bruce McDonald, and this has been the Talamanca Review.